Good evening. You don't want to clap for me. Hold that applause. Welcome to our in-person and virtual audiences this evening. I'm Amy McDonald, the director of CitySpace. A year ago, October 13th, Jacques Pépin graced our stage in front of another standing room only audience to talk about his new cookbook, Quick and Simple. Tonight, he is here to talk about a very different kind of book about a subject dear to his heart, chickens. Art of the Chicken. It is a charming book. It is filled with not only recipes and memories of his childhood, but also lovely illustrations that he did of his favorite bird. Back to interview him is Boston's well-known food writer, editor, and cook, Sheryl Julian, who is also a good friend of Jacques. I want to thank our partners in this Curated Cuisine series, Boston University's Food and Wine program, and also our sponsor for this evening's event, Cambridge Trust. Thank you so much. We couldn't do it without you. And now please welcome a big round of applause for Jacques Pépin and Sheryl Julian.
Good, I get wine.
I get water.
Water is dangerous.
One of us has to stay sober, Jacques. So you had an exciting time before Thanksgiving, Jacques. You went on to the Jimmy Fallon show and taught him how to carve a turkey. And we have a clip on the screen behind us, so let's all have a look.
Oh,
so here,
okay.
like this, you can do that. So here now you can cut this way directly, and then you go right down into slice.
Nice close-up.
No, see, this. I can't do this.
Of course you can. You're going to do the other side.
Oh,
So
oh my gosh, Max, I am going to do this.
Yeah, do the side here.
Okay.
Or you can do it, maybe it's bigger. So you cut it this way.
Yep, cut it that way. Watch
Yeah.
out, be careful. I'm not around me.
A little lower.
Lower,
Yeah, that's it.
right under the wishbone thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Go across.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, beautiful.
Wow, that felt
And then
good.
now you start slicing.
And then slice it like this.
Yes. Now you go,
this?
because now it's stopped right there.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa, you look good.
Look at this. Whoa, look at this.
Perfect.
Are you kidding me? I'm gonna...
How was a nice? Actually, it was a nice turkey, very moist and
I
nice.
know, looks beautiful. So is it a blast to be on the stage with Jimmy Fallon? Is it just a laugh a minute, or all the laughs here and the rest of it's stressful?
No, I thought he was a very nice man. I mean, he was. I've been on his show before. And I've been on Jay Leno's show way before, many years ago. No, so no. Usually, I mean, food is not, brain surgery. So
Well,
people are happy with what you do, and
so how does it all work? Do you arrive at the show and some elves have prepared Thanksgiving dinner, and you went on to show your mother's sweet potato custard on the
yes,
the
I mean, actually, yeah, you're right. It was totally different. I was supposed to go on the show the week before, I think, and then on Monday, and then they said, no, you have to come on Wednesday. And I was supposed to do the gratin of pumpkin. In France, before I came to this country, I never had pumpkin with sugar in it. Pumpkin is a squash, and in France we do a puree of pumpkin with milk and cream in it, and eggs and cheese, and to do a gratin. So I said, that's what I'm going to do. And they say, great. But then just change at the last minute. They say, oh, can you carve the turkey? I still had the gratin there. Someone made it.
Yes, the gratin was there.
Which was good too. So it's pretty open. I mean, it's pretty. It's not really very structure or whatever, So.
You've had a long TV career. You did 13 seasons at KQED in San Francisco.
Yes.
Fast Food My Way. You did more shows with Julia Child in her Cambridge kitchen. And then during the pandemic, you did your own cooking videos at home with
Yes.
your friend and photographer, Tom
Yes.
Hopkins, who's here somewhere.
Where's my granddaughter here?
And
Where is
this-
she?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, here's my granddaughter. She's at BU now. So I've been teaching at BU like 40 years. And my daughter, Claudine, went to BU. And my son-in-law, where are you? Okay. He teaches at BU as well. And now my granddaughter is at BU. So there is a really family tradition at BU. And you can notice that even though I live in Connecticut, I'm trying to get the Boston accent right, but I
Yes.
have a problem with that.
So you and Tom did these videos during the pandemic, and
Yes.
then
Where
and
is
then
Tom?
they started.
Tom
is there.
Okay, dear.
And then they started getting 1 million views. They went from
Yes, it
very
was-
small to very big.
It was actually Claudine, my daughter, which is not here tonight. She's home. But Claudine said, well, why don't you do, a couple of years ago at the beginning of the pandemic, a little show of like 2-3 minutes to show people what you have left in your refrigerator or stuff, or in the pantry, or this, to do a little recipe like this. So Tom said, okay, I'll do it. Tom and I have been working together 40 years. I have done 30 books, and he's done most of them, and video and so forth. So at the beginning of the pandemic, actually, even Christine, Tom's wife, didn't even come into the kitchen. She stayed outside. It was just the two of us. And I cook and did the dishes, and he shoot with one camera, and then his telephone things on top to do the close-up. So we've done almost 300 of those, in like 2 years, and they are about 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes too, and it's been quite successful.
They're wildly popular.
Yeah.
Congratulations. So The Art of the Chicken, your new book, it's essentially a memoir told through recipes, and they're filled
Right.
with your own illustrations that you've painted over the years. You wrote that you haven't been painting as long as you've been cooking.
Right.
So let's do the math. You've been painting for 50 years, and you've been, as opposed to cooking, for almost 75 years.
Yeah.
And so what moved you one day to pick up a paintbrush instead of a whisk?
I came to America in 1959, a long, long time ago. I came for a year. I said, I'll come there for a year, learn the language, go back. I mean, I had a great job.
You know
in
the
France.
Boston expression about that? Come for a beer and stay for a year.
Yeah, right. That's true. So, I had a great job in France. I worked in Paris, had been the chef to the president in France. My parents had a restaurant. Usually, most immigrants to this country come because of economic reason, to get a better money, better life, or political or racial or religious reason, or one of those things, which have nothing to do with that. So I said, I'll come, stay a year. I just wanted to come to America, stay a year, maybe 2. It's over 60 years ago. So I'm still here. So, at that time, I left school in 1949 in apprenticeship. I was 13 years old to go in a formal apprenticeship. So I never went to high school and all that. Not because I didn't, I didn't want to, because I could have, but so when I came here, I decided to go to Columbia University in New York, English for foreign students. So I went to Columbia from 1959 to 1973. So many years, English for foreign students and some type of validation program, because I never went to high school. Then I get a BA, then I get a master, then I was finishing a PhD when I start teaching at BU too. And what was your question?
I asked you about painting, but I'm going to veer off.
Painting.
No, I'm going to veer
Yeah.
off a little bit to the
So when I
Columbia
was
story.
at Columbia,
Okay.
then I took a couple of classes in the sculpture and drawing, I believe. Yeah, 1960, 61 too. And then I have painting from 1960. So I have painting for, many, many years ago. And I used to give them away, a lot of them, and Tom stopped that. He decided to do an art site, and he sold my painting for a fortune. Now I can't believe it. So, but it used to be free. But
I want to ask you something about the Columbia degree. You were writing your I want you to tell the story of having finished your coursework for your doctorate, and then the university, and you had a little bit of a disagreement over your thesis subject.
yes, well, it was. I wanted to start that story in the 16th century. A very famous French poet at that time did an apology of the field salad. So at a starting point there, I wanted to do that up to Proust, Little Madeleine in the early 20th century. That is a survey of French cooking in the context of civilization literature, which is very important, as we do, as the program we do at BU now, that Julia Child and I created in the late 80s, and we do
With Rebecca
a master of
Olsvik this year.
with a concentration in gastronomy. So that was the idea. And at that time, in 1973, I said, food, are you crazy? No, we cannot do that. I have to say that Columbia gave me a doctorate after. They gave me
Well,
a few years later, I did.
Okay.
But it was another world, At that time, the cook certainly was at the bottom of the social scale. And any good mother would have wanted her child to marry a lawyer, a doctor, certainly not a cook. Now we are genius. So I don't know what happened, but anyway, so it was a different world. Yes, it's true. Yes.
so you decided in this new book not to write recipes the standard way. So you don't have a list of ingredients and an
Right.
explanation of the method. You just talk the reader through the recipe
Right.
as if you were on the phone talking to a friend. So a recipe might begin, cut a chicken into pieces and saute it with shallots.
Yeah.
So I'm just guessing here, but I'll bet your editors gave you a very hard time about that format.
she did.
Because they wanted exact ingredients,
Yeah.
right?
Well, to start with, Tom and I have been shooting pictures for so many years, so I have 31 cookbooks. So I say, I want to do a book of my painting, the chicken. So they say, oh yeah, we'd love to do a book of your painting of your chicken. So we start sending some painting, Tom did, and right away they say, okay, can we have recipe with that? I don't want to do recipe with this too. So I have another book that I wrote in 2000 or so called The Apprentice. And it's a cook's memoir about the story of my life since I was a kid.
It's a really, really lovely book, The Apprentice.
Oh, thank you. So I decided to do the same thing, talk to you about chicken and eggs, of course. Kind of talk about chicken without eggs. In that context, about story about it from West Africa to Russia to Vietnam to France to wherever. So I started telling those stories about eggs and chicken and so forth. So it's a kind of a, in a sense, rewarding book for me because it's the first book, in a sense, which I have my painting and my cooking and my writing together. It's kind of new, and I thought that I didn't think that I say maybe it will work, maybe it won't work. I don't know. I have had more publicity with that book than with any other type of book. So it's been great.
Well, you're 86 at the top of your game. That's pretty good too.
Oh yeah, that's right. So yes.
Okay, so we have a question from the audience. What was your relationship like with Julia? Was it friendly or
No,
competitive?
hate. She hated me, and I hated. I met Julia in 1960. I was here in 1959, 1960. I met Julia, and I knew James Beard, and Craig LeBon, who just started at the New York Times. Both were the trinity of cooking in America, James Beard, Julia Child, Craig LeBon. And I knew them within 6-8 months after I was here. That tells you how close and how little the food world was at that point. The food world was very, very little. It was a different world. And
well, you were also cooking at the premier French restaurant in the country at the time, Le Pavillon.
Well, I was at the Pavillon in New York. Yeah, so that's
Little
how
aside.
I met Craig. Craig LeBon at the New York Times came to do a piece on the Pavillon, and I had it. But yeah, it was quite different than it would be now in terms of. I mean, the food world is so big and large now. But it was a friend of mine, Helen McCauley, was the food editor of McCall House Beautiful, and she kind of took me under her wing. She was never married. She was in her 70s even at that time. So she became kind of my surrogate mother. And she got a manuscript of Mastering the Art of French Cooking. Well, Julia was writing it in 1960. And she said, oh, I have that book. You want to take a look at it? So I took it. I said, yes, that's good. That's pretty good. She said, well, the woman lives in Boston. She's coming next week. You want to cook for her? I said, sure. She said, she's a very tall woman. She has a terrible voice. Well, terrible voice. So that's how I met Julia. And I remember 1960, we spoke French most of the time. She came back from spending several years in France, and her French was better than my English at the time. So I knew Julia from 1960 until she died, 2005, for basically half a century. So we were friends. We argue a lot. We drank a lot of wine together. But
that terrible voice won her a lot of Emmys. Art of the Chicken begins with a story about a group of young boys. You were 7 years old, and you were among these boys who kidnap, as you put it, a local farmer's chicken. Can you tell us the story of that?
I lived in France, in an area of France called Bresse, B-R-E-S-S-E, next to Lyon. And the chicken of Bresse are considered by many the best chicken in France, expensive and all that. So all the little farm and all that, those are free-range chicken running around and so forth. And I think on that particular occasion, I was with my brother, who was a year and a half older than me, so I was about 7, 8, so some older boy like 10, 12, 14, and we were playing around the river too. Then one of them saw a chicken escaping from a farm or walking around, so we go dive and to get the chicken, grab it, broke his neck to kill the chicken, and then we were by the river. They took clay or mud at the river, cover the chicken with that to make a big bowl of clay, build a fire, then cook that in the fire for like 2-3 hours, then break it with a stone, and then open it, and of course all the feather and the skin, because the feather, everything was on it, everything, and cling to the stone, then open it to have the flesh there, which we had. It wasn't probably a 3-star Michelin, but anyway, we ate it at the time. That was, when I was a kid, maybe one of the first experience with chicken. I've done the same thing with putting the whole chicken into bread dough, putting it into the oven. Well, the chicken is at that point eviscerated and plucked, but with the bread dough around to cook it and it's fun, to do it this way.
So what is it, you wrote that you didn't really learn about breast chickens until you were at these elite restaurants in France, because all the elite restaurants used the chickens of Bresse. What was it about the Bresse chickens that the chefs liked so much?
Now, first, it's a beautiful white plumage chicken with a red cock and blue feet. So the French
customer
flag
doesn't see the plumage and the
it doesn't matter. Bleu, blanc, rouge, the color of the French flag, the leg.
I see. Okay.
And the chicken of Brest are raised, freelance, free range, and so forth. And they have usually a little house the chicken are in there, but they're on wheel. So the chicken may be there are like 50, 100 chicken there in that little hen house, and they eat around and so forth. And then about 2-3 days, they roll that little house another 50 feet there, 60 feet, so the chicken are moved all the time and keep eat, and the cow come, and there's the cow manure, and there's the stuff, and the chicken. It's a normal process, so... Yeah, so when I was a kid, the chicken of Brest were, and it's still one of the greatest chicken in France, that we do.
And is there a farm near you in Connecticut where you can get chickens that are raised locally and free range?
Oh, yes, I do. I mean, in the back of my book here, you see I have 2 chickens on my shoulder, and Tom took those and from a little lady, Natalia, who is from Jamaica, actually, and raised chicken and duck and stuff, so we get some.
Oh, good. Okay. So one of the egg recipes in the book is related to another job in your life. You were the breakfast chef for the prestigious Hotel Plaza Athénée in Paris.
Yeah.
I've already gotten a blanket, okay, for my bad accent in the green room from Jacques.
All right, you're doing very good.
Thank you. So you were the breakfast chef, and you have a recipe for something called the very best French toast.
Well,
and how
I don't know if it's the very best.
Okay, well, it sounds pretty good. How do you make the very best French toast?
Well, in France, to start with, the ice cream, I mean, at that point, we're talking about vanilla ice cream, are done with a crème anglaise, a custard cream, done with egg yolk, sugar mixed together, and vanilla, and then the milk and cream to it. So it's a custard cream which is made with those egg yolk. And usually, a French toast, well, you take your bread, in that case we use brioche there, dip it into eggs, and saute it in a skillet, put sugar on top, and so forth. There I decided sometime, in the morning, you had a lot of those to do, and I was stressed and all that, so I went to the bake shop there that they had, and I took like 15 scoops of that beautiful vanilla ice cream, put it on the table to start with, the whole thing kind of melting. So then a slice of brioche that I dipped into the melted ice cream and saute it with butter into a skillet and finish it with, with maple syrup. To say it was pretty good.
Does that sound like the best French toast you've ever imagined?
Easy way to do it.
Okay.
Pretty good.
A question from the audience. What do you think about the ethics in the chicken industry? And should we think about ethical ways of raising birds?
Oh, yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, we were talking this afternoon with a student I was teaching at BU about foie gras, the goose liver pate and the duck liver with the inflated liver, and people get crazy and they will kind of kill the farm. You go to those farms, the duck there or the goose are very happy. They are running for you to feed them, because the point is that, well, it was the Egyptian before the Roman who realized several thousand years ago that at the time of migration, when the duck or the goose will fly, the animal will overeat, and at that point, if you kill the animal, the liver was twice the size that it should be normally, and was the best that you ever had. And this is the only animal in the world who can do that. Then fly, migration, come down on the other side, and the liver goes back to regular size. It was a natural process. So the feeding of the liver to those animals is really a natural process, really, but people get totally berserk with that and getting crazy with people serving foie gras, when in fact you go to farm where they raise chicken. That's horrible. In a room like this, probably between 8,000 and 10,000 chicken, the noise is atrocious. They realized by cutting the noise down, it reduced the cholesterol in the egg yolk by like a third. And then, in addition to that, through the floor, they have a line where the food is served. At some point, it goes through, and the chicken get to the chicken is territorial. It fight. to avoid them sucking, they blind the chicken and cut the toe. So the chicken are blind to cause that enormous noise. I mean, it's horrible the way the chicken are raised, much more than those poor duck who are, in farm usually. So what was it?
We all need the name of your Jamaican chicken source in Connecticut,
Yeah,
I think, by now.
So the chicken, yes, there's no question. If you can get, you go. I mean, at the market now, it's like there is no reason not to buy organic eggs. It's $1, $2 more for a dozen. It amounts to nothing at all. I mean, and the chicken too. I mean, you should buy chicken of higher quality like this too, because chicken raised in the standard form, it's really a shame very often the way the animal is being tortured and all that. I mean, they put light on the head of chicken. Chicken, usually in the morning, the light comes off, chicken will lay 1 egg. That's a normal process. Well, they put light on the head of the chicken so they can do 2 eggs a day because they don't know whether it's light or night. It's horrible the way the chicken raised in... I'm sorry, Mr. Perdue. Or whoever.
So when you were the chef to Charles de Gaulle, you write that Madame de Gaulle, who was known to the French nation as Tante Yvonne, called you Petite Jacques.
Petit Jacques, yeah.
You were only in your 20s.
Yes.
And the de Gaulle's favorite chicken was chicken chasseur. Can you take us through the recipe for chicken chasseur? It would be something that would be made this time of year.
Yes, it was. Yes, so it's true. I was introduced by someone, a while ago, who said that man was chef to 3 French presidents. The 3 of them are dead. Okay, it's true. It's a while ago. The chicken chasseur was a real... When I worked with General de Gaulle there, so I did the menu on Monday with Madame de Gaulle, so we're going to do that during the week. And so I served Eisenhower, Nehru, Tito, Macmillan. Those were the head of state that I served when I was there. At that point, when you serve a head of state, you have to deal with the protocol. They come to you, say you have to do that to the menu. It cannot be more than 55 minutes or an hour. 1 meat, 2 meat, this, that, 2. Or you're the prime minister of India or whatever, so you're not going to serve beef with that because they don't, or pork or whatever. So there is all of those type of things. The protocol will tell you, don't do that, do this, do that. Or when I serve with de Gaulle, they say, okay, President Eisenhower was already last week having 2 dinners. They serve salmon and this and that, so don't do this. So you have a whole system when you do those type of dinner. But when we do, like Madame de Gaulle on Monday, it was the family. So the family say, I want this, that too. Jacques, I want, a leg of lamb, not too rare because it's no good for the president. I say, fine, medium, this, that too. So usually you work like that. I mean, to cook to cook for someone is to please someone, So when you have people coming to your house, even if you don't like your leg of lamb very rare, if those people like it medium, you do it medium for them because they come there and the whole idea is to please people. In a restaurant, it's the same way, If I'm the chef there and someone order a rack of lamb, I do it medium rare. That's how I like it. But people want it very well done or rare. Yeah, I will do it the way they want. They pay for it and so forth. That's the way it should be.
So come back to chicken chasseur.
Oh, yeah, right.
Okay.
So chicken chasseur, but chicken cacciatore, if you want, in Italian, too. That's chicken sauté with some shallot and onion and garlic and tomato and white wine and on a stew together like this, which is a relatively very classic old recipe that we used to do. At that time, we never serve on plate. Plate didn't exist. We serve, we call it in the family style now. We do the dish in a large platter, which was brought on the table on the platter, and people help themselves. So that was the way it was done.
And then there was something very nice that Madame de Gaulle did. at the end of every week. She reimbursed you for her Sunday dinner.
Yeah. That was an interesting part. I was chef with 2 presidents before, and we did spend a lot of money on, big
Events, parties.
event party and so forth too. But I'm the goal too. When we did, like with the President Eisenhower and to that, but when it was for them, the Sunday dinner, they were very devout Catholics, so they went to church on Sunday. So the Sunday dinner was with children, grandchildren, this, that, to the whole family. And of those, I had to make a special accounting to give to her that they pay from their own pocket, which was basically, a drop of water in what we spent, but it showed, the ethical quality of what he wanted to do. So you have to admire that and realize that was pretty impressive in some way.
I thought so too.
That's how he wanted it, and especially that the de Gaulle were not wealthy at all. I mean, they had money, but they were not very wealthy people. Question of principle. So.
When you came to the U.S. After having worked in all these prestigious French kitchens, you said that you were very surprised in New York, even at a place like Le Pavillon, which was so celebrated, that there was a lower cook-to-customer ratio in that New York kitchen than there was in Paris, and that the chefs worked various stations.
Yes.
So what's some of the other differences?
It's interesting now when you think of it, because, for example, at the Pavillon in New York, which was considered the greatest French restaurant in the U.S., there was no grill. There was no grill for me. In Paris, at the Plaza Athénée, I had 2 big grills, one for fish, one for meat, where we grilled and all that. And at the Pavillon I came, it was under the broiler. They browned under the broiler, but there was no grill, really. So there was almost no vegetable. There was a couple of vegetables served with garnish too, but not much. That in Paris, at the Plaza Athénée, the biggest part was the chef entremetier, which is the vegetable chef, with like 8 and 10 different types of vegetable. You order. I'm saying that it's interesting because now, years and years and years later, you think of American cooking as grilling and more vegetable and grilling too. It was exactly the opposite when I come, as opposed to Europe. It was very, yeah.
And was that wood fire in the French kitchens?
Yeah, yes.
Live
I
fire.
mean, with coal.
Coal.
Wood coal. Not. Yeah. Wood charcoal. I mean, not.
Right.
Not
So you turned down what some might consider to be the most prestigious job in America at the time, becoming the chef at the Kennedy White House.
Yeah.
Can you explain your thinking?
Right. As I said before, the cook was at the bottom of the social scale, so I didn't really realize. I had been the chef, as I said, in France to 3 presidents for 2 years, and I'd never been on a newspaper, never been on a magazine. Television barely existed at the time, but radio too. It didn't exist. The cook was in the kitchen. They would never call you to the dining room for kudo in the dining room. That just didn't exist. So when I was asked to go to the White House, I didn't really realize the potential to tell the truth. I was studying at Columbia. I was doing things. I had friends in New York. I didn't want to move again from New York to Washington. And so at that time, I was working at the Pavillon with Pierre Friday, was the executive chef, and Mr. Johnson, Howard D. Johnson, which was the one who created the company, was a client of the Pavillon all the time. And he asked Pierre to come, and Pierre quit the Pavillon to come to Howard Johnson to develop recipe and do things. And he ended up being the vice president. So Pierre asked me to come with him. And I said, yes. No. And finally I said, okay, so I'll go with Pierre. And I stayed there from 1960 to 1970 for 10 years. And when I finished in 1970, I opened a restaurant on Fifth Avenue in New York called La Potagerie, a restaurant between 45, 46 on Fifth Avenue doing soup in large production. Then I was a consultant at the Russian Tea Room. Then I set up the World Trade Center, big operation, kitchens, commissary. I'm saying all of that to say that I would never have been able to do any of those jobs without the training of Howard Johnson. As a French chef in a restaurant, I would never have known about production, marketing, chemistry of food, like I learned in Howard Johnson in 10 years. So Howard Johnson was a big influence in my life. It was a different type of world, but as I said, you have to look at it in the context of the time. People say, oh, you refuse to go to the White House, to go there. Yeah, but at the time it was a different world. I had a friend of mine, Michel Bonetta, we had the apartment in New York. He said, oh, I have a friend of mine. He's a sous chef at the Essex House. I think he'd be interested in that job. That was René Verdon. We called René Verdon. René Verdon was interested too, and he ended up being chef at the White House at that time. You know,
But Jacques, we all know René Verdon.
Yeah.
So would we have known you?
Oh.
Like how did celebrity chefs come about?
Well,
How did that all happen?
But what I wanted to say that René Verdon became the chef at the White House, and he sent me a picture of him 2 years later with Mrs. Kennedy and with President Kennedy. At that time, 1960, you know, early women liberation, organic gardening, all that, everything was exploding too. And all of a sudden, the chef became, wow, too. It was another world. It didn't exist. But who was the chef at the White House before René Verdon? I asked, and I was told it was a black lady from the South. So no one would have known her name at that point, no more than they knew my name or anyone. It was totally taboo. It was another world. And it started again with maybe René Verdon and all that, and with the Kennedy family too. So the world changed. So for me, not going to the White House in the context of the time, I have to look at it in the context of the time. So it was, yeah, I think it was a good
this is a question from the audience. Do you consider yourself a celebrity chef now?
Celebrity chef? Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, you sort of invented the idea, don't you think?
Not really, but you
Okay.
know, so I don't know really what it means.
Okay. You were writing about the Howard Johnson's commissary being
that one is good, you know, but it's almost the other
being an immersion course in chemistry and food science.
Yes.
So they had steam kettles that held 1,000 gallons of
Are you
soup
kidding?
and a
Yeah,
ladder
right. Yeah.
to get up into the kettle.
Yeah.
Something that looked like a Ferris wheel that held the ovens,
All right.
rotating ovens. With this new equipment, you decided to create a chicken pot pie. And
Yes, but
it sounds like if you wrote the recipe with a list of ingredients, it would say, start with 3,000 pounds of chicken and add bay leaves and peppercorns and water to cover.
yes, but I started in the kitchen with about 6 chicken, and I poached. I have to say that Howard D. Johnson, the owner of the company at the time, was an extraordinary man. You know, he came to my wedding. He came to the christening of Claudine, my daughter. You know, and he was in 2000. Time magazine did the 100 most important people of the 20th century, and he started with Bill Gates. He started with Henry Ford, finished with Bill Gates. And one of them was Ray Kroc, who created McDonald's. So I had met Ray Kroc 4 or 5 times with Mr. Johnson, Howard Johnson at the time too. And you know, the point is that Mr. Johnson was, I think, an extraordinary man and very, and I learned from him.
Well, he had 1,000 restaurants.
Yeah, 1,000 restaurants. So when we started at Howard Johnson, he told very generously to Pierre Freinet, who started, he said, you do whatever you want, it's fine, don't worry about it. So, we start cooking, doing a mess, doing this. But I started doing 6 chicken in the test kitchen. 6 chicken, I take out the meat to measure. At that point that I had a chemist with me, so he said, well, a specific gravity is that, has to be this and that. We cannot freeze it at that temperature because it grows the bacteria to, so the thing starts changing. From 6 chicken, we did 50 chicken, 100, and we end up with 3,000 pounds of chicken cooking at the time. It was an amazing thing, which I learned too. I would never have learned that. As I said, as a French chef, I had no idea of how to do that type of production. So I did. I mean, America was great to me. I mean, I learned all of those things that I would never have learned any other part in the world. So
another recipe in the book is for the late Danny Kaye, the comedian Danny Kaye's chicken salad, which he made for you in his home.
Yes.
Before I get to ask you what makes his salad so unusual, I was quite surprised to read that if you were 1 minute late to Danny Kaye's house, you never got another invitation.
Yeah, right.
And the other piece was if you talked about anything else but food, you never got invited back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Little strict.
Yeah, Danny Kaye, I met in New York. After I quit Howard Johnson, I opened a restaurant called La Potagerie on Fifth Avenue between 45 46. And he came there with Sally Dar, who was
Gourmet Magazine.
Gourmet Magazine editor-in-chief, and she was a friend of him, and he brought him to me. And Danny Kaye was like, he loves you, doesn't like you. Inviting me to his house. He had an apartment in New York, so I became friends with him. Then after I went to the West Coast, he always picked me up at the airport, took me, we do
You weren't late.
Together. So he was, but he was a great cook.
So what was so unusual about his chicken salad?
Well, the point is, one time I came to his house and said, I'm going to show you how to make a chicken salad. So he took a chicken, it opened the drawer, take a handful of fork, knife to stuff it into the chicken, drop it in a stock pot. I said, what the heck are you doing? He said, that's it. The chicken cannot come to the top. It's weighted down. So we fill it up with water, bring it to a boil, and salt, pepper, seasoning, some vegetable, and so on. And boil it like 3 minutes. That's it. And then he said, now you leave it in there. You leave it in there for an hour in the hot water, and it cooked very slowly. And then we put out the skin, and it was very tender, and it was amazing. So I learned something. I always learned something. So the chicken, I think you're going to have some chicken salad we're doing after for you. We did it a little bit of the same way. I mean, with chicken breast, we did with the student this afternoon. We put it out, so you got to test it.
Can't wait.
Sort of, yes. So, yeah.
So you sketch out recipes in one of the sections in Art of the Chicken, and you call them bonus ingredients. They're made from various parts of the chicken that people may not be using.
Yes.
So one is something you call chicken bacon, which you make when you're poaching chicken for Gaston, your miniature poodle.
That's my dog.
Okay, so how do you make the chicken bacon?
Well,
You should probably tell everybody how you make Gaston's dinners.
yes, well, Gaston is my little dog. I was married 54 years, and we had Rottweiler, first one, then a second, the son of that Rottweiler, then a third one. Then we had a black lab with a golden, or that big dog, and at some point, after like 40 years, my wife said, next one is small, no shedding, no smelling. So we move into poodle.
Miniature poodle.
So Gaston is one of those little poodle too. So yeah, and what was it about?
His dinner, Gaston's dinner. And
Oh,
you...
so Gaston dinner, so I poach usually chicken leg with him. He likes the meat of chicken leg too. So I take the skin out of it, and the skin I put flat on a cookie sheet. Usually the inside of the skin on the cookie sheet first, so it sticks. I want it to stick to the pan. A bit of salt on top of it in the oven, like 350, 375 degree, and it cooked there in 30, 35 minutes, and it stick to the pan, so the fat get out, and you have a thin layer. It's like bacon, I mean, very thin and all that of chicken fat. It's better than bacon, so we use that to crumble it on top of soup, on top of salad, on top of one, so it's our
Sounds wonderful.
chicken skin bacon. So.
Yeah, it sounds very, very nice. Someone in the audience wants to know if there's anything that still inspires you to create chicken recipes.
Yes, I mean, yes. I mean, if the chicken is smiling at me, I am to cook it in one way or the other. No, there is always, 24,000 restaurants in New York City, maybe a bit less now. The ethnicity that we have in this country is unique in the world. So you go and you think you know all of the recipe, and you go somewhere and you have a guy from, Senegal or West Africa or somewhere else, and you go there and you have a recipe for chicken. Wow, so that's good. I never had that. It's another point of view. The chicken that you had as a child, wherever you come from, usually those recipes that you have as a child are very visceral. They are very powerful, where your mother or whoever cook it to and so forth. But then, you go to any part of the world that you have never been, and you discover something which is very ordinary there, and for you, wow, totally new. So yes, you always find a new way of doing chicken and all that. Because chicken may be the most, talk about that democratic food of all of the world. You have chicken in the truck stop outside, the truck food outside, and then you go to the hospital. Usually they're gonna give you chicken too, and then you go to a 3-star restaurant and you have chicken with truffle under the skin or whatever. There is no place in the world, no set of restaurant where you don't have chicken, one way or the other. So chicken is, in a sense, maybe the most democratic of all the food, that you have. This way, I've had it from West Africa to Russia to anywhere in the world. So yes, chicken is very democratic this way.
Okay. So now I'm going to ask you 3 simple questions.
Oh.
And the name of this segment is called What Would Maman Do?
What?
What would Maman do? How's my French?
Maman, okay, that's my
Okay,
mother.
yes, okay. So this is about your mother,
Yeah.
Jeanette Pépin.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So here's the first question. Maman has had a busy day at the restaurant and come home to 3 hungry boys to feed dinner to. What's on the table?
Take out. No, we never had take out when I was a kid. Yeah.
In your childhood.
Yeah, I mean, my mother was the most avaricious, meager cook that you can think of, and that's why I'm very meagerly in the kitchen. I don't spend too. So yes, my mother would use everything inside too. And so with my aunt, in my family in France, I count 12 restaurants. 12 restaurants in my family. 12 of them run by women. My mother, my 3 aunts, sister-in-law, cousin, all women. I was the first male to go into that business. So yes, a woman, especially around the place where I come in Lyon, is pretty well known, pretty formidable woman at some like 3-star restaurant. Very important.
Les Mères de Lyon.
Yeah, and then, Léon de Lyon and so forth, yes.
This is the second question. Maman's favorite local residents tell her that they're coming to her restaurant for a celebration, and would she cook whatever she likes for them? What's on the menu?
What's on the bread and butter. If you have the greatest bread in the world and the greatest butter in the world, it's very hard to beat bread and butter. Anything that you feel like cooking, I'll be happy to eat it.
Say she had a whole chicken. What might she do with it?
Roast chicken? You know, if you do a roast chicken properly done and so forth with skin, it's hard to beat. But the 100 of the recipe with chicken.
In France, when she was cooking in the restaurant, how many people does a roast chicken serve? Not these big birds that we get in the supermarket now, but say a 3.5 pound, what a friend of mine calls a chicken-sized chicken.
6 people. Yeah, that being said, I work at the Pavilion in New York. We roast a whole chicken, bring it to the dining room. The whole chicken was offered to the guests for one portion, cutting whatever they wanted. So everything is relative to the type of restaurant, but certainly at home, at least 6.
Okay. And finally, you are going home to visit Maman, and she wants to make a special dinner for your reunion. What is she cooking? If she's cooking your favorite foods.
Okay. Leek and potato soup. The little potato she got out of the garden when I was a kid. And before we ate, she just went up, lift up those potatoes out of the garden in a skillet and saute with an escarole salad with a lot of garlic and in it. So the escarole salad and the potato just saute like that. Yeah, those were some of the greatest taste that I can remember. Yeah.
Well, that
pretty ordinary, but good.
Sounds very, very nice.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for joining me here on the stage.
Thank you. Thank you for having all of us.
I know there are some other people who are going to get up and say a few words.
All right. Do I have to sing now?
No.
Good. Okay.
May we have a round of applause for this icon, Jacques Pépin. Now I'd like to introduce Danielle Remis-Hackel, Chief Marketing Officer at Cambridge Trust, who is sponsor of tonight's evening, and she has a special surprise to share with all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. It's wonderful to be here, and it's really a pride and joy of Cambridge Trust to sponsor this tonight. We try to invite meaningful conversations with our communities and with our people, and it's our pleasure to sponsor with WBUR and to spread some joy. And these conversations tonight have done that. Conversations that let people meet each other, conversations that teach us about chicken and everything we want to know about chicken, and conversations that bring us joy. And so on the note of joy, I wanted to share a couple of surprises. You heard, Jacques, you spoke beautifully about the chicken that you made with the students, so everyone tonight is going to get a chance to taste outside. Also, I heard you were here early signing some books, so everyone tonight will get a signed copy of The Art of the Chicken. Thank you. And finally, everyone tonight will get a taste of wine from the Obsidian Winery, which you've known for many years. So everyone here tonight will get a chance to try. So I just wanted to thank you. And Sheryl, you were a beautiful interviewer. That was a wonderful interview. And the only request we have is that tonight, if you speak with Jacques, you must speak in French. Bonsoir.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Head out to the lobby. Wine and 2 chicken dishes made by Jacques and the students from BU Food and Wine today, and a free copy of Jacques' book signed. Thank you, Cambridge Trust.